All right. Welcome back.
Once again.
Yes. One last time for the 5th time today and the last time.
6th time today.
Well, not back. It would
welcome
be welcome.
Back the 5th time. Gotcha.
Yeah. See. Yeah.
I gotcha.
Anyway, it's getting late. In the meantime, that is still...
a do-while loop or a while-do loop? Where
I think there'd be a do-while loop because the check is at the end.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. In any event, that's still Jeremy Foster over here. I'm still Christopher Harrison. This is still Building Blocks. And this is Module 6, where we're going to take a look at a couple of different libraries. That one of the jokes that we've told a couple of times, besides chicken cacciatore, is, and single-letter variables, is about not launching rockets. And, hey, what can we take advantage of that's out there to help make our lives easier? And that's exactly what we want to take a look at in this last module. There's a couple of the cool libraries that are available to us. And I want to start off with one that's near and dear to my heart, a little library that's called SignalR. See, one of the biggest challenges that we've had as web developers is we've been looking for a way for the server to signal the client. It's very easy for the client to signal the server. I mean, all you have to do is just add a link to your page. Bob's your uncle. But to have the server query or send a signal to the client, that's a big problem. Because the fact of the matter is, HTTP really wasn't built with this in mind. So we have had ways of doing this in the past, but quite frankly, none of them have been all that robust. None of them have really been ideal. And this is actually where WebSockets comes into play and where SignalR comes into play. But before we get into there, let's talk a little bit about SignalR and what SignalR is going to do for us. So SignalR is going to give us that server to client push. Basically, it's RPC-style programming, but by utilizing JavaScript. You're going to notice that it has the ability to scale to thousands of connections, something, by the way, that we're going to test a little bit later. Get your trigger fingers all set and ready to go. And you're also going to notice that we've got the ability to scale this out. This is workable inside of Azure, and it is open source. So if you actually wanted to go in and contribute, you'd have that capability. But before we get into actually doing the demo, let's talk a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes and the different options that are available to us. So first of all, you're going to notice down here at the very end, we've got long polling, which is basically just here. I love this slide. I'm going to skip ahead one slide here, which is got data. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Long polling.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like the right way, even if it works.
Exactly. Yeah. Just having to, just bombard that server with those constant requests, just really not going to work. So what we really want to be able to do is say, hey, look, do you support WebSockets? Do you do real time? And just have the server come back and say, sure, I'm a new server. I love real time. And then we all get together, let's go, and it's awesome. And that would be fantastic. And oops, I want to get back to that slide right there. So long polling is here at the end. Now, here at the other end is WebSockets. And WebSockets is a new protocol. It does use port 80 and 443 for SSL and non-SSL respectively, but it's not HTTP. That this is designed for two-way communication. Now, the catch with WebSockets is that, unfortunately, not every browser supports it. So how are we going to create code that still supports older browsers, including all the way back to doing long forms? Or how about maybe somewhere in the middle here, something that will do forever frames, which is basically just setting up an iframe and keeping that HTTP connection alive. Or maybe server sent events, where this is another protocol that was put together by the people who did Opera that, again, is a two-way protocol. WebSockets is the one that's put forth by the W3C. WebSockets is what all the cool kids are doing. So let's get in and take a look at WebSockets and how WebSockets are going to give us the ability to do what we're looking to do. And let me see, can I kick forward to the right slide? I can. There we go. Let's take a look at how all of this is going to come together. So let me fire up my little SignalR demo that I have right here. Now, this is actually based on a demo that I do in other classes as well, and it's mostly pre-baked. There's a couple of little things that I'm going to need to add into it, but it mostly is pre-baked. So let me go ahead and set up first SignalR. And that's going to be a very simple right-click and manage NuGet packages. And let's do a real quick search for SignalR. And there it is. And we'll go ahead and hit install. And then let it do its thing. And I'm going to accept. And now let me hit close. Now this is actually one of the little advantages to utilizing a NuGet package, is that you have the ability to open up different files. And so you'll notice that right away it says, hey, in order to set things up, mapping the hub's connection, we'll talk about that more in a couple of minutes, to enable SignalR, create a class called Startup with the following. And you'll notice that Startup is already there. We just need to add in a couple little calls here for using Owen. So let's go, sorry, actually, I don't even need that. I just need this. Let me just go in and do that. Let me just go in, map my SignalR, because I know that those calls are already there, and let me just paste that in. Cool. That's all that I needed to do, one little line of code, and now everything's going to be set up on the client and on the server. Let's focus our attention first on the server and on my little scenario here. So let me launch this, and let me go to Trail Details 1, and no.
So you got an unexpected error.
Yep.
And we're wondering what's going on. And you know, I've run into that error before, and I believe that it has to do with a versioning thing. That's bringing in version 2.0.
Yep.
I've got that exact same error before, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to be much help. You know what might fix it is a rebuild of the service project, of the web project.
I did that.
Okay.
So I'm just going to update everything.
And there we go. Do you ever wonder as a developer how much of your life, how much time in your life you've spent looking at progress bars?
I don't know that I'd really want to stop and calculate that. Although, you know, I mean, we've got a couple of cool technologies that we could use now to go in and do that.
Figure that out. Some eye tracking.
Yep. There we go. Okay, now let's rebuild all of this. That succeeded.
Bummer.
Okay. Cool. All right. Do me a favor. Talk for 2 seconds, and I know what I'm going to do here.
Okay.
I'm just going to go with a real quick plan B. So it's just going to take me 2 seconds to get there.
Okay, do you want me to flip things around and show the
Yeah, let's just do that.
Okay.
Let's just do that.
So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to flip this around, and we're going to actually show the usage of SignalR. So we'll see the application first, and then we all know that WizKid's going to have this done in like 90 seconds. So then we'll just come back, and it'll be working. So let's flip over to my screen, and I want to take you all, everybody that's watching this, I want you all to go to this same web page.
This is a perfect distraction.
Perfect. So I want you to go to shooter.signalr.net. Shooter is spelled without an E, because that's the way we do it in this day and age. In 2014, you don't use ER at the end of your startup name or your service name or whatever. So it's shooter.signalr.net. And I'll see you all in the flight room. What we have here is an online game that is using web services to communicate. So look at that. I'm seeing, there you are. There's everybody. And let's see how you're doing. Oh, man. See, I'm no good at this. I don't play video games, so what's happening is every time I do anything, like, see, now, I'm not going to tell you guys who I am because you're just going to pick on me. That's the way it's going to happen. Oh, there I am. Bye-bye. Okay, what's happening is these little craft are firing their bullets, and every time anything in the game happens, whenever I move, whenever I fire, or whatever, a little message is sent to the server, and it's not sent by way of HTTP. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump you over here to Fiddler, and I've filtered this down so that I've filtered out some of the noisy things that are happening on my machine right now. And so I have nothing there, and then I'm going to just refresh this and retry, and it's going to load this. And let's go look at Fiddler and see what all it did. It did a bunch of typical, like, scripty things. That's all fine, but look at these ones down here. The icon over here on the side is WebSocket. And what's actually happening is it's by way of an HTTP connection that's being opened up that all of this WebSocket communication is happening. So it doesn't have to continue to open HTTP connections, and it doesn't have to continue making HTTP requests. Now, normally when a bunch of little communication about what's going on in given in anything, let me go ahead and request that again. Anytime you're doing anything on the web, if it's doing any AJAX requests or dynamic anything, it's happening by way of HTTP requests, and you'll see those pop into Fiddler. But as you can see, we're not seeing anything pop in because it's all happening by way of SignalR. So let's go look at an HTTP request that we've seen before, kind of a typical one. Let's look at maybe this one, and let's look at the raw response and the raw request. And this is a pretty substantial request, but remember that this is essentially the HTTP envelope that travels to and from every HTTP round trip. So this has to be there on the way there, and this has to be there on the way back. Now, when you trim all that down and you rely just on WebSockets, you essentially cut out all of this, and your entire message looks like just a wrapper around your message itself, whatever your message is, plus 2 bytes.
That's it.
So super duper small, saves all that overhead, and it allows for a lot of real-time, fast communication. And thanks, Gas221, for just destroying me. Okay, you're smiling again, so things must be working.
Yes, things must. Well, actually, I was just smiling and watching you get destroyed.
Oh, watching me get destroyed.
Yeah,
I see.
That was a lot of fun. But no, what I did is I was hoping to try and sort of partially build this, sort of like having half the baked cake, and then we'll just ice it on screen. And unfortunately, adding on the icing just sort of.
Let's build
sideways.
Shooter real quick.
So there we go. Yeah, real quick. You just sit over there and just keep playing. In any event,
so am I too noisy?
No, not at all, not at all. Okay. Where were we? Yes, Australia. So here's the scenario that I've got. And let me just go ahead and launch this real quick.
Launch, no pun intended.
I see what you did there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to launch a couple of trails here. And so there is number 1, and then let me go ahead and slide that over there, and there's another number 1, and then right over here, and then here is going to be eventually number 2. And so you'll notice that I've got Mission Bay, and I've got Lake Miramar. Now, the thing about Lake Miramar is that there's a lot of cyclists, so I maybe want to make a note of that. So I'm going to say lots of cyclists. Now, I, of course, want to make sure that anybody who's looking at Lake Miramar, so maybe we open up another little screen for Lake Miramar here, I want to have everybody who's looking at Lake Miramar see that new comment. But anybody who's looking at Mission Bay, I don't want them to see that comment. So when I go in and I hit Submit Comment, what you're going to notice is that just Lake Miramar see those updates, but Mission Bay does not. And that's what we're looking to do with SignalR, is we're looking for that real-time communication of, hey, look, something has changed. Something has changed, and we want to let somebody else know about that fact. So in order for this to work, what we're going to need is a couple of things. I'm going to need some way of sending real-time communication, true story, and I'm also going to need some way to make sure that I can group people together, because I need to make sure that our Mission Bay people are the ones seeing things for Mission Bay, and that my Lake Miramar people are the ones seeing things for Lake Miramar. So I need to make sure that we keep people grouped together. So that's the scenario that we've got. Now, the way that we've done this is we've installed SignalR, and I've already created the different moving parts that I'm going to need. Let me focus in on the server side first and on my comment hub. Now, on this little hub, here's what I want you to notice. Nothing. Well, no, I take that back. I want you to notice something, but what I want you to notice is the plainness of this. There's really not a whole heck of a lot that's going on. That I'm inheriting right here from another class called Hub.
So that's doing all the work for you.
It's doing most of the work for me. We like that, absolutely. And then you're going to notice that I've got a basic little method here that takes two parameters, both of type string, one called trail ID, the other one called text, and that's going to represent our comment. Then what you're going to notice is that I'm going to create a new comment, and let me go ahead and use the peek capability, Alt F12, and you're going to notice right there that there's my basic little comment. So it's got the comment ID, it's got the text, and it's got the trail. So we've just got that as our basic little comment there, nothing overly fancy. And then I've got my little comment repository, and just to fire this up, what I want you to notice is that our comment repository has a little get4trail method, and in particular, it's going to be using, and let me Alt F12 that, a little create helper that will actually save this back into our data context. The real takeaway that I want you to get out of that little spot right there is that there's really nothing that is SignalR related. This is just normal everyday code. So whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, save something back into a database, which is what I'm trying to do, maybe call another web service, do whatever it is, you can do exactly that inside of here. So what you're actually doing is completely irrelevant. Now we actually get into the cool part. Now we actually get into the SignalR part. That after we add in the comment, we now want to send that comment out, but we only want to send it out to select people. We only want to send it out to people that are looking at that particular trail. The way that SignalR does this is by utilizing groups. So if we come back to Visual Studio here, what you're going to notice is that because of the fact we inherit from Hub, we now have a clients property. And off of clients, you're going to notice that we've got things like all, which would give us the ability to send to everybody, all except, which would be everybody but the caller. You'll notice that I could send back to the caller, I could send back to specific clients, and I can also send back to a group. And in my case, I want to send back to a group, but what we're going to need is a name for the group. And you're going to notice that I'm going to name my groups based on the trail ID that they're looking at. So when I say clients group and I specify the name, that's going to give me everybody inside of that group. Now, here's the next part. New comment does not exist. New comment is not available on group. That actually group is going to give me, let me do it this way. This is going to give me a dynamic object. And with dynamic objects, this allows me to do, as referred to much earlier this morning, duck typing. That what I can do is just graft this method on there. That method does not exist. New comment is nothing special. It does not exist. I've grafted that onto there, but this is now going to be able to send a signal down to the client, that this is eventually going to be looking for a JavaScript method named newClient, which we're going to see in just a couple of minutes. Now, the other little thing that I'm going to need inside my hub is a way for our clients to register, and you're going to notice that I've got my little register method right there. I'm going to add them into a group. I'm going to grab their connection ID, and I'm going to grab the ID of the trail that they're looking at. So that is now going to give my user the ability, when they connect up, to put themselves into the appropriate group. So there's the server side. And again, the big takeaway that I want you to get out of the server side is the fact that I can do whatever it is that I want. That my focus in here was really just about what I want to do with the data and not how I'm going to send the data down to the user. How am I going to send the data down to the user? Or how's the user going to receive that data? Well, that is going to be inside of here. Let me go to trail and details and right on down here. Okay. Let me actually highlight my HTML real quick. You are going to notice up at the very top that I've got a little bit of MVC code up here. Don't worry too much about that. That's just making my MVC magic happen. The big focus is right here. Once again, there's nothing fancy. All that this is just stock, regular HTML. I've got an input text, I've got a button, and that's it. Now, down below, I've got two little JavaScript references. This first one is to the JavaScript, or to the SignalR library. That always needs to be there. That's just going to give us the raw SignalR. Now, here's the thing. What's going to happen is the server wants to be able to call down to the client. And the client wants to be able to call up to the server. Well, the only way that we're going to be able to make a call in JavaScript is if we have the JavaScript. So coming back over here to my comment hub, you're going to notice that I've got add comment and I've got register. Both of those will become callable to the client. But again, in order for that to happen, we're going to need JavaScript methods.
We need a reference. And it needs to be dynamic, right? Because it needs to be those specific method names.
That's exactly it. And that's where that little SignalR hubs is going to come into play. What's going to generate that? Well, what's going to generate that is this little code inside of my startup CS file that maps SignalR. That maps SignalR, this right here, is generating the client JavaScript for the server methods. So you could actually just go in, open up that JavaScript file, and inside of there, you would actually see methods for our add comment and for our register. They would actually be there, which is cool. So now let me go back over here to our little details, and let's dig into the JavaScript itself. And you're going to notice that up top, I'm pulling the trail ID. Again, just a little bit of MVC making that happen. Then you're going to notice that I'm going to connect up to the comment hub. Why comment hub? Well, again, there's no magic here. What did I call it? I called it comment hub. Now, you're also going to notice, and going back to something that Jeremy pointed out earlier this morning, is casing. In JavaScript, convention is generally camel casing. And in .NET, it's Pascal casing. SignalR will handle this for me. So I can actually case the way that I typically do in JavaScript. I can case the way that I typically do in .NET. And SignalR will automatically handle the translations. Which is why, back inside of my JavaScript, I said lowercase c on comment hub. Now you're going to notice that we're going to append on that little new comment method. And this is going to send up our, or allow our server to send down the data. So again, new comment, you're going to notice lowercase n. And again, no magic here. You're going to notice back over here on my comment hub that there is our little call to new comment right there. So again, matchy-matchy, and coming back over here, it's matchy-matchy. So we're appending that on, pointing that at the function, and then we're just going to append onto that list. Then what we need to do is we need to wait for our server to start up. So we'll go ahead and say start up and done. And once we've made that connection, now we can go ahead and register. And again, you're going to notice register, not a keyword, nothing magical, happens to be name of the method back over here, register. And then you're also going to notice when I come back over here to details that once you actually do the little click, let me just put in a little white space, make it a little bit more readable. There's my little call to add method. And you're going to notice that my hub has both a client and a server side. And so that will allow me to make the call into our server. And so if I actually just threw in breakpoints here, and let me put in a breakpoint right there, and let me go ahead and a real quick bit of F5 and trail 1. Give this just a couple of minutes. My comments are probably going to be gone because it reset the database. Yeah, I was expecting that. But now what you're going to notice is best running trail in San Diego, and hit submit comment. And it bypassed my JavaScript. I guess my JavaScript debugging isn't set up. But you'll notice that it is, in fact, at least making the server call. And that is one of the fantastic things there, is that it just automatically made that call. And then again, if I just F5 the rest of the way out, now you're going to notice that I get that printed out. And again, just to bring up a brand new window, there you go. You can find me here every Saturday. True story. There you go. And whoops, there's my debugging in action again. That's okay. Let me just minimize that, get back to here, and sure enough, you're going to notice there's my new little comment. So
that is so slick.
Yes.
It actually feels weird at first to call a method on the server, to call a method on the client from the server, and vice versa. It feels weird at first.
It does certainly feel weird, and it does take a little bit of setup just to kind of get everything in place. But when you think about the alternative, especially when you're talking about not only having to step back, which is certainly a monumental pain that nobody would want to take on, but even actually just doing WebSocket development is a little bit of a challenge because we really only have one method and one event. One method to send the message, one event to receive the message on the other side. So even something that's this simple, being able to allow somebody to register, being able to then also take in that brand new message, even something like that takes a fair amount of build up and a fair amount of work. And this simplifies everything. I'm a huge fan of SignalR. If you don't mind the shameless plug, blog.geektrainer.com. I've got a 3-part blog post so far on going in and setting up a basic little SignalR demo.
That's excellent. Yeah, I'm using SignalR in an app on my own right now on the side and having just an absolute blast with it. In the game, there are players that have devices that are walking around and have got their geolocation, and everybody's sending their data by way of SignalR. There's just these little tiny messages flying around constantly, and it just makes it so easy. I always love libraries that feel like they've taken all the ceremony out of what I'm doing.
Right.
And left me with just the code that represents the essence of what I'm trying to get done.
Exactly. Yeah. Let me focus on what I'm trying to accomplish and just take everything else away from me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Well, are we ready to look at another cool library?
Yeah.
All right. Let's look at Reactive Extensions. Now, the reason why I bring up Reactive Extensions is this. I talk to a lot of audiences, and I'll ask people, how many people are familiar with Reactive Extensions? And unfortunately, there are still a lot of people that just haven't seen it, even though there are a lot of applications where this would be really great and alleviate a lot of headaches in the code. Now, Reactive Extensions is unfortunately one of those topics that I don't have my head, I've looked at it extensively, but I still don't have my head wrapped around it entirely. I can say that I understand it pretty well, but I'm not going to be able to take you on a complete deep dive into it. And to that end, I'm going to somewhat read this description here because it's going to say what Reactive Extensions does much more eloquently than I can. Okay, so it is a library for composing asynchronous, event-based programs using observable sequences of LINQ-style query operators. Let me say, if you love LINQ, and it sounds like in the chat room like a lot of you love LINQ like I do, this is basically just taking LINQ and extending it so that it works on events. Some people even call it link to events.
Yep.
So as opposed to just taking these static lists and being able to enumerate those and manipulate those with our LINQ operators, we're now able to take those LINQ operators and use them to query and manipulate streams of events. So when you start doing that, when you start seeing how they work, it gets it looks pretty powerful. So basically, simply put, they are observables, which are basically the pub sub model, the ability for an observer to get subscribers, and he then can tell those subscribers whenever there's something new, and it can be one to many subscribers. So it's observables and LINQ and a scheduler. And the scheduler is really powerful. The scheduler really means that you can throw these actions, the execution of the code itself, onto various thread entities. You can have it go to the thread pool or some other various other means of actually executing them. And you can have them execute with a custom scheduler. So in other words, don't just do this according to the real clock, but do this according to some sort of an abbreviated schedule, perhaps. So it works perfect in scenarios where you have something that happens over a sequence of time, and you want to speed up time. So let's test this 3 weeks of data usage, and let's test it in the next 10 minutes. And let it happen all really quick, and then show me my results.
Okay.
Because this link to events, one of the unique things about it is that it maintains the fidelity of the time and the timing in which these events have occurred. So enough words, let's actually try to look at some of the examples that I've got here. Now, the easiest way to get reactive extensions, whether you're in C# or JavaScript, it's available for both, is to go into NuGet and look it up. So just look for Rx or reactive extensions and you'll find it. And you can look for rx.net, and you can also look for rx.js for JavaScript. Now, if you want to learn, reactive extensions beyond the way I know that I probably just made it all entirely clear for you. But if you want to learn it beyond what I've said here, I recommend that you go to introtorx.com. This is a wonderful website that has very extensive. It kind of starts at the very bottom and brings you into understanding what exactly this does. And if I remember right, there's a book here that you can download and read. So really good way to learn that there. Okay, so let's have a glance at a reactive extensions demo that I put into CodeShow. Let's jump over to CodeShow, and all of the reactive extensions demos begin with Rx. And the one that I'm going to bring up for you is the Rx Canvas Paint. It's a really simple demo. Here it is. It's a great big div. This is in HTML JavaScript, so obviously this is using Rx.js. And I'm going to draw on here.
Cool.
Okay, now functionally that's all it is. It's just a nice little notepad there. But let's look at the code and see how this is implemented. Actually, before we do, let's imagine how we might implement this manually. You can imagine this is probably one big canvas, and we can do some canvas functions that allow us to draw lines on here. But what we're capturing is information about when the mouse has gone down, as the mouse has moved, and then when the mouse comes up, right? Those are the types of events that we need to capture. And most of you have experience, I'm guessing, with just capturing events. But you probably know that if you're just capturing an event, it's quite simple. But if you're capturing an event over time and checking things in that event, coordinating it with other events, and trying to mash the whole thing together and do things logically, as well as be a good citizen and dispose of things correctly, it gets really difficult. So enter reactive extensions. Let's go ahead and see the code. The HTML is no big deal. You can see that we've got a canvas with an ID of tutorial. That's it. It's got a nice little height and width, so it's got some size there. We're putting a little gray border around it in the CSS, but that's about it. All the magic is happening here in the JavaScript. And here's what we've got. Now, here's a reference to our canvas. We've got the 2D context for the canvas. If you're not familiar with Canvas, that's okay. It's basically just a place to draw in an HTML app. We're going to set up a couple of things like the fact that we want the line to be dark blue, and then we're going to start our path, and then we want to do the drawing inside of these reactive extensions methods. So let's first look at mouse moves. Now, mouse moves is going to end up being an observable. It's going to end up being, think of it like an IEnumerable, except one that contains events that actually fire at a certain time. Not just an IEnumerable that contains static objects in it, but one that contains events that fire. Now, the way that I'm building that is by using the RxObservable from event method. From event says, okay, I know a lot of people are, they're not dealing with an app that has this latest and greatest reactive extensions observables everywhere. You've probably got existing events that are firing all over the place, and we want to take one of those existing events, such as when the mouse moves on the screen, and we want to turn that into an observable sequence.
Yep.
So we're going to do from event on the mouse move, and now we have a mouse move observable sequence. Cool. Well, starting with that mouse move observable sequence, what do we want to do with it? We're going to get a thing called mouse diffs, which is a collection of little movements by the mouse. And the way that we do that is we start with this observable collection, but then we add a method onto it. Now, I told you that reactive extensions is essentially linked to events.
Yep.
It gives you all those link methods, select and where and all of those. it gives you more as well. Because when you enter the world of events, there's kind of more that you can do.
Yep.
So we get select and where and all of those, but we also get buffer with count. Now, what does that do? I suggest you go to intro-to-rx.com and read all about the buffer. But buffer is essentially going to take little windows of the streams that occur in your event. And in this case, it's going to take a window size of 2. So it's going to say there are mouse moves, and every time there's a move and then another move, package those up as one single object,
right,
and let that be the type of object that this stream is delivering.
And if I can jump in from the C# side of things, that you can do this exact same thing. You can wire up the event handler. And one big thing that Rx is going to give you is the ability to add in filters as well. So rather than only looking for, say, the text changed event or only looking for the mouse move event, then I want to make sure that it's actually moved some fair distance before I actually execute the event handler again. Or I want to make sure that there's actually been a lot of text that's changed. Then I can go in and do that, which is not something I'd be able to do with just a normal event handler.
Right.
Now, with a normal event handler, I know that the mouse moved every single time that it moved, or I know that the text changed every single time that it changed. I don't have the ability to just say, all right, look, let me know when they've changed 5 characters, or let me know when the mouse has moved X amount. And that's a big thing that you can do with Rx that you can't do with just regular events.
Yeah, the way that you would have had to handle that is you would have had to store some state somewhere that says this is what the where it was last time.
Right.
Now this time, compare if yes, no.
Right.
Now you've got some state that you've got to clean up. So that's one of those things that you've got to maintain. Rx takes away that headache. And actually, one of the classic demos for reactive extensions is calling a web service. I'm not going to be able to show that one right now, but it's a good demo, and I suggest you go to Rx on GitHub and look for that demo and run it. And essentially, the autocomplete demo uses reactive extensions to query Wikipedia for article titles.
Yep.
And it assumes that you're typing into a search box, but obviously you don't want it to bring back the results every time you type something. You want to throttle it, and that's actually the method. You want to throttle it by a number of seconds.
Yep.
And say only catch this every 3 seconds or so, because I don't want to be sending off all these queries every single time I type something.
Exactly.
Yeah, this buffer with count takes the last 2. So you can imagine the very first time the mouse move observable has an event that occurs, that very first time, nothing can be reported in mouse diffs, because in order to fill a buffer, you have to have 2. So on the second one, you get the first and second, and on the third one, you get the second and third, and so on. So you get this window of buffers. And so then inside of this function, you're going to be able to compare, and notice where I have x0 and x1, I'm able to compare the first buffer and the second buffer. The first mouse move in the buffer and the second mouse move in the buffer, the positions of the values there, and I'm able to compare those with each other and create an offset. Okay? So this is a stream, and now because this started with a stream and only used reactive extensions, it is also a stream. So now anywhere in my code, I could subscribe to this, but like you were suggesting, that's kind of too much noise.
Yep.
Nowhere in my code do I care about every single time the mouse moves.
Right.
I only care about that buffer, so I'm probably going to subscribe to the diffs. Now let's look at the next step where we capture this mouse button. It's an observable from an event. It's looking at when the mouse is down. It's selecting that and it's merging it with when the mouse is up. So it's merging 2 observables together. We've got ups, we've got downs, just like life, right?
Wow, this whole session just got a whole lot deeper.
Yeah, now here comes the philosophy.
Yes.
Okay, now we need to actually do something with this, and we have this thing called paint. This is my mouse button, which it was a merge of 2 different streams, so it itself is a stream. And we're going to drill in and look at the diffs, and we're going to take those diffs and then grab just the latest one. And so now we have a stream. So this is this stream is getting more and more refined. I only care about when it's moved this much. I only care about this. I only care about this. And now we have a stream, an observable. It's kind of like a custom event that only fires when we care about it.
I like it.
Now we're ready to subscribe to it. So we simply say paint.subscribe, and we give it a function. And because of the way that we have kind of manipulated the values on all these manipulations up until here, we can get exactly the value that we want. So we can get an offset that we can then compare. We can now go to our context and say, I want you to move to x.first.offset x. and then draw a line to the second offset X and offset Y, and then go ahead and draw the stroke. So all of that drawing happens right here, just in those. And as you can see, it's terse, it's elegant, it's expressive, and it doesn't require any cleanup. It's handling a lot of that type of stuff for us. Let's flip back to the demo and see it in action.
You just like drawing on your screen.
I do. I love drawing on my screen. See, so I'm working on multi-finger touch here, and the screen supports it, but this app does not.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
That'll be the 2.0 version?
Yeah, that'll be the 2.0 version.
Okay.
And other cool libraries. Okay,
Yes.
what else do we have? You want to tell us about some cool C# libraries?
Sure. So a few on the .NET side. Number one, and again, forgive me because I'm an MVC guy. I got to highlight MVC.
You're just going to
Sitemap.
keep beating that drum.
You know, I am. I think this. I think it's got legs. I think it's going to go somewhere. But in any event, the Mvc Sitemap Provider. What the Mvc Sitemap Provider is going to do for us is give us the ability to better create and better set up our navigation. Because one of the biggest problems that we have with MVC is that the URLs could change at any moment, that you don't actually navigate to pages in MVC, you call methods. And those methods are based on the URL structure. So I can't just simply say, well, go to this page, because that page doesn't actually exist. And I can't say, go to that URL, because that URL could change at any given moment. So the Sitemap Provider gives us the ability to better dynamically create all of those different URLs on the fly based on our current routing. Now, the next couple, the Mvvm and the Unity ones, are all about better object design. That Mvvm, model view, view model, allows us to focus in on what the user is actually going to see. That one of the problems that we wind up having is the actual data model is going to be much more complex than what the user is actually going to be experiencing. So I may have my customers, my suppliers, my categories, going back to just something very simple with Northwind, but maybe I need to create a view where I'm going to give you the ability to create a brand new product. Well, if I'm going to give you the ability to create a brand new product, I need you to be able to select the category and select the supplier. And trying to do that without a model that's specifically built for that view is a real challenge. And having to go in and constantly create all of these different view models really becomes a challenge. So you're going to notice that there's libraries out there that will help you with that. And then finally, last but not least, is Unity. One big thing that we didn't get into today that could probably warrant its own MVA if it's not already there is test-driven development. Doing unit testing, test-driven development, it takes a little bit of work up front, but it will save you so much time later on. The problem, however, if you are going to get in and start doing that, is I need to be able to make sure that my different objects are swappable, that I need to make sure that I'm not always going back and connecting to the database. That, put simply, when you're creating a unit test, you want to test exactly what you're testing and nothing else. So if I'm just trying to test, hey, does this little action give me back a 404 if the object doesn't exist? That's all that I want to test. I don't need a database test there. So I need to be able to swap that out very seamlessly, very quickly, very easily. And that's going to help not only with testing, but also just to make my code more updatable, more maintainable, and less brittle in the long run. And so Unity is one of the different dependency injection utilities that are out there that's going to help you create that style of an environment. How about on the JavaScript side?
There's a few. Might come with a qualifier. First of all, the first one is not a library.
Okay.
Because instead of giving you a fish to feed you for a day, I'd like to give you a fishing pole and teach you to feed yourself. So microjs.com is a site that I jump to a lot. And apparently Apache is functioning normally, so that's excellent. I'm really glad to know that that is the case. What's going on with that? Come on, guys. Let's just do a search for it and see what.
Again, no www.
That was the reason. Oh, it doesn't work with the www.
Yeah,
that just can't be. Come on. That's really, I haven't seen that before where somebody didn't support that. Okay, so micro.js, thank you for noticing that.
You're very welcome. The JSON to C#, the exact same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should have noticed.
Yep.
Okay, well, what micro.js does is it gives you this gigantic, like, I think it's an infinite list here. I think there are literally an infinite number of libraries, because this is an infinite scrolling list.
Somebody mentioned in the chat, I think it was Alt 263 for an infinity.
Infinity? Let's just prove that. Oops, I already hit the
Now,
wrong thing.
really what you're proving is my memory.
Uh-oh. No, I think that you're correct, though. We're at the end here. We've got time for this, right? Oh, now that's 263. Let's try 236. And let's try to get it in there before 236.
236.
Yeah, so that was just a little bit of listexia.
There we go.
Okay, so an infinite scrolling list. And this is just a gigantic list of, starting with the small libraries, it's a gigantic list of really little JavaScript libraries that you can pull in. Okay? And there are a lot of them. Look at this one. This is perfect. Pinky Swear. This is Pinky Swear, which is a really small implementation of promises. We talked all about promises today. And if you want to implement promises and you want to make sure that the dependency that you take on is no more than 0.4 kilobytes, here's your man. All right?
I like it.
And there are a lot of them in here. If you are looking to do something, it's already been done. It's already been written in JavaScript, and it exists on GitHub or micro.js or somewhere already. So,
not launching rockets.
Look for them there. Exactly. Definitely look in NuGet too. That's another good library to look through.
Oh, yeah. So much inside of NuGet.
Okay, Floater is a very practical one. I'm going to show that one in Code Show. Floater is a library that was originally ported. I think it's a popular Java library, and Floater.js was ported to JavaScript. And I'm showing it off in Code Show here. And I have really, really simple code with really little snippets of data, and I'm making pretty nice-looking charts out of those. Look at this. I've even got a candlestick chart and a wave chart with a line chart with multiple things on there. So let's go look at the code behind these. Let's look at the really simple one. Here's the simple one. For the HTML, here's the HTML. All I need is a div. Just give me a div and I'll make the magic happen. This is called Simple Chart. CSS, none.
Nice.
None. You can customize
Sure.
it, but now here it is. Now look at this syntax. This is pretty slick. This is using jQuery. We're going to select that simple chart control, and then we're going to add the first series like this. Here's the data. This is just an array. Here's the label. Here are the lines, some options for the lines and some options for the points. So let's jump back to see the demo, see the points right here. I don't have I don't have zoom it on mine right now, but those are the points. So let's go to the, I can't change that dynamically right there. What was I thinking? So the points are just because of that configuration. Here we are. The points are because of that configuration. Now let's go look at a more advanced one like the candlestick chart. Again, the HTML is simple. The JavaScript is where it all happens. And even in here, it's not very long. This is it. We've got ourselves a little loop that generates some random data. So every time we run this, it's going to be different. And then we draw a candlestick chart using that data. Notice that it's using D1 here, and D1 is what we're pushing these random values into. Okay?
I'm just loving all the single letter variables.
Are you loving those?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
really short, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
var A, B, and C. Those were made especially for you.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Okay, the last one I want to show you is D3. D3 is a really great JavaScript library. It's huge. You could spend a lot of time learning D3. Before I show it to you, I'm going to actually jump you out to the website, and this is at d3js.com, I think. Let's just leave that www. No. org. There it is. Data-driven documents. Okay, so A, their website is spectacular. B, their library is spectacular. So look at this. This is all, I feel great already. I'm going to go ahead and click on one of these and feel even greater.
Better.
Or gooder. Okay, now what I've got is a UI that's been created perhaps in HTML, but possibly with HTML and SVG, because this has very strong support for SVG. This one looks pretty political. Let's stay away from politics.
Yes, let's do that.
This one, let's not do that one either. Let's talk about tree map. Okay, so we've got a tree map control here. This one doesn't actually do any moving, but it sure has laid things out in an interesting manner. It did it all, with these D3 functions and such. Now, I found that a few of these were interesting, so I brought a couple of them into Code Show. I put them in the D3 demo, and if you go to D3, the first one is a force-directed graph. So look at this guy. I can grab these little nodes and pull them around and whoop, 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 whoop. This is pretty slick, huh?
Do you have to make the sound effect?
Actually, that wasn't me. It came with it.
Oh, okay.
No, that was me. So yeah, this is a very elastic object that's responding to my touch. And I can drag this in. I literally dragged this into Code Show and finished this in like 5 minutes.
Nice.
Okay, so it's really easy to do that. And imagine if these little nodes were representing your data, and maybe they were color-coded and size-coded to represent your data, and the user could see all of these interconnections, all of these relationships, visualize your data, and actually interact with it. So really super slick. This one takes data about the shape of the state of Alaska, where I was born, and it draws the state of Alaska. So this isn't just a JPEG. This doesn't show very well because you go, yeah, you probably just dropped a JPEG in there. It's not a JPEG. It's actually dynamically drawing the state of Alaska and all the boroughs and everything. So pretty slick.
Nice.
I can show you the code, but this, my friends, is a chord diagram. Now, I'm not a graph theorist, and I have no idea what a chord diagram is. But I thought this looked really cool. And you can touch these little nodes, and it shows you, it looks like they're showing relationships between frequencies. Now you know all about it. You know as much about it as I do. So those are a few cool libraries that I've found, and that does it.
That's it.
I say we take some Q&A from the field here. So we're going to go ahead and sign into the chat room.
Yeah, the Q&A will take a couple of minutes to come through here. So while we're waiting, now's a perfect opportunity to mention the poll down at the very bottom, that the poll's been placed out there. Let us know how we did. You'll notice a very simple little A, B, C, D question down at the very bottom. But we'll be sticking around for a few more minutes to answer questions, and I'm really just trying to pause long enough here because I'm watching the video down here and watching the delay, and just watching that come through here.
All right, and we're going to be looking for questions. Don't have to hurry. And please feel free to drop suggestions about cool libraries that you know of into the chat window, and we'll respond to those as well.
Yeah. And right now it just hit your little spot on the little polls. So, yeah, so it's probably still going to be a couple of minutes here.
Okay?
It's not the real delay? Oh, okay.
Right now I'm watching it and I'm seeing you guys.
Oh, okay.
Marius, RX is another topic that could be covered by MVA. You're absolutely right.
Yep.
That could be covered in an entire session, and that would be awesome. But, by the way, there are a lot of videos on RX already. It would be great if they were packaged and delivered on MVA. But if we can just jump over to my screen, I'll take you to the Reactive Extensions. I forgot the actual URL, so I'm just going to search for RX, and hopefully... I was wondering if that was going to be way high up in the list there. Okay. Well, we'll say reactive, and I bet it'll be high now. There we go, Reactive Extensions. So if you go to the official website for Reactive Extensions, you're going to find some videos. If they're not on the front page, they're under the Beginner's Guide.
Yep.
Playing this by ear here. Under the Beginner's Guide, you'll find a lot of really good videos on there. This series here, the workshop, is exceptional. I think you'll learn a whole lot from these guys. Some of the guys that actually wrote the code, so pretty impressive.
So the couple little questions, just try and pick out certain ones. Building a website on Server 2012 different? It's not. You can actually just do that the exact same way with MVC. Let's see. And just to try and keep things clean. And then, somebody asked about downloading the source code. You know what? Let me take 2 seconds and do that now. Let me just zip
Upload
that
the
up.
source code?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you want to...
Now, somebody asked if we could talk about Node.js, and you can make Node.js a really short conversation or an extremely long one. But essentially, Node.js is JavaScript running on the server. So JavaScript has always been relegated to the client, or at least it was in the past. Node.js is a way of getting JavaScript on the server so that you could write an API raw in JavaScript, run it in a Node.js server, and serve your API. So then you actually have JavaScript written from the client all the way up to the server. So it's pretty cool for people that want to write JavaScript the whole way across. For me personally, I tend to be in the habit of expecting JavaScript on the client and C# on the server. There are a lot of things in place for C# for exactly that. So it's just kind of whatever you love, whichever one you want to use. By the way, hosting Node.js in Azure is super slick, very easy and very performant. There's some great stuff in there. It takes literally seconds to spin up a Node.js server, and then you can go create a local Git repository, and then with a simple Git push your code up into your server and use that for your deployment, source control deployment, as well as hosting it. So that's pretty slick. Can we use Durandal? And I've heard controversy on the pronunciation. I say Durandal. Durandal, I'm not sure.
I say potato.
I say Durandal still.
Okay.
It doesn't look anything like potato, but can you use that in modern apps, in Windows 8, in Windows Store apps using HTML and JavaScript? Yes. For the most part, if it's JavaScript, it runs in a Windows 8 in a Windows Store app using JavaScript. The only exceptions are ones that you can easily work around because maybe they violate one of the very few restrictions that you have in that environment, and so they're usually pretty easy to work around. Does OData support code-first development? Well, yes, it does, in the sense that you write all your models, and then you do a simple scaffolding, and then it's available as OData, right? So the code is in charge.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly what I did with my demo. Is I had set up that little project, did that up with Code First Entity Framework, and then mounted that, if you will, with the OData facade, and away I went from there. So that was exactly what I did.
Now, when I think Code First, I think one of the advantages is that if I go back and kind of add a property to one of my classes, I want that to just appear in my API, and in fact, it would, right? Because in my get method that was scaffolded, it's serializing the object, which includes all of the properties in it. So all of a sudden, you'll start getting that new property.
Yep.
Polymer project. We've got a recommendation. Let me go have a look at that. I'll vet it first. So see if you can find anything.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to go like this. Get a link and view only, and create and shorten. And there we go. Let's go ahead and post that. That is now in the chat window. My code.
Cool.
IIS Express cause issues on a server that uses IIS? No. Those two are separate, so they shouldn't. I'm going to do it this way. I'm not going to say explicitly no. I'm going to say they shouldn't cause issues.
Is there an upper limit or guideline to the number of connections you for SignalR before you start seeing degradation?
The short answer to that is yes. The longer answer is, as with everything in performance, your mileage will vary. That it depends on what it is that you're doing with it. So it's hard to say explicitly that if you hit 300 people that you're gonna see degradation in performance. So it really just depends on the number of people, and then also to a certain extent the types of connections that they're using, because if they are using long polling or if they are using fervor frames, then that's just going to take that much longer.
What about being able to scale it out horizontally so that as my site grows and the demand increases, can I set up another server that's going to
absolutely, yeah, and Azure support will give you the capability to support that.
Now you need to go to the SignalR site and look at the documentation too, because there are certain considerations. SignalR holds on to connection IDs so that it knows who is calling it, and right. So you need to look at the considerations. You need to offload
that so that way it can actually pull that out. Yep, absolutely.
So one of the suggestions for us to look at was Polymer, the Polymer project. This looks really cool. It looks like it gives you the ability to kind of create custom HTML tags, so you can do what you want in your HTML. Maybe a little bit like Angular, but not exactly sure. So that looks cool. Famous, also looking at Famous, is that for It's a front-end framework that solves performance for HTML5 apps. Wow, there's just like a million.
Yeah.
A million. You know, there's one more that I want to show, which is on IE Test Drive. If you guys have never been to IE Test Drive, you should. As a matter of fact, it's really fun to show off on touchscreen monitors. So here we go. Look at this. This is the browser Surface demo. Now, keep in mind, this is not running locally on my machine. This is running over the web. Let's just go full screen here. And what it's done is it's loaded a bunch of high-resolution images. And I'm going to drag these images out of the palette here onto my board. And I can grab any of these with 2 fingers, and I can stretch them up and rotate them. I can do what I want with them. Look how huge that is. Isn't that great? Now, I got as many people as I could together, and we put as many fingers on the screen as we could. And I can only do 3 pictures by myself with 6 fingers, but I can manipulate multiple at a time. Yeah, the 6-fingered man. So this is pretty cool because this is running on the public web. You know, it's running out there. So
that's cool.
And there are tons of cool things in here. And the other one that I want to show you is the MPEG Dash. MPEG Dash is super exciting. It's like we finally have an HTTP streaming standard that's like created by W3C. You know, so this doesn't belong to any one company. And if I play this this demo, watch this. You can get a feel for the quality. It's kind of decent quality. It's all right quality. You know, you can look at the fine details of it. We've all seen better at home. But now let me turn that bit rate way down and expand it. And within 3 seconds, you'll watch the quality snap to absolutely abhorrent. There it is. So terrible quality, right? And if I had Fiddler running, which I did, and if I wasn't filtering things out, which I wasn't, then bam, I get to see that the stream decreased from something like 290K per video clip, which those are the 3 or 4 second video clips, to down more like 86K per when I dropped it down. So dynamic bitrate modulation there. And now watch me up this all the way to real high. Now watch the quality. You should see it get like Blu-ray-esque. It's perfect, right?
Nice.
I hope that's coming across to you guys at home that well, but it looks perfect. And let me jump over to Fiddler now and look at this. Now I've got some serious bandwidth. This is like 2.3 megs per video clipped, per 3 or 4 second clip. And all of this is just done through a standard HTTP, including DRM. So again, if you jump back to the IE test drive and you go back, there is one in here that says Netflix. You can't miss it. And this one will actually
I don't think we really want to
trailer.
put House of Cards on there.
No. This is just a trailer clip. And this will actually play with the valid DRM and everything. So you can actually go to Netflix and sign in and watch Netflix with no plugins installed on your computer. No Silverlight, no Flash, no anything. Just HTML5 only.
Nice.
So,
all right.
Woo!
I think that was a pretty good lap.
Yeah, that was
good. So one last time, as you can see down on the little bottom there. Still Jeremy, still Christopher. Thanks a lot. You're going to see.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you. And you're going to see Jeremy tomorrow with Stacy. I will actually be sort of hanging out behind the scenes tomorrow, and that's going to be it.
And then more on Friday too. We won't be here, but there will be more content.
Exactly
on day 3.
Yep.
Cool.
So we'll see you all tomorrow. Well, our morning. It'll be whatever time it is, wherever you happen to be,
and whenever you're tuning in.
Yes. So thanks a lot.
See you later.